The notification came at 11:47 p.m. on a Tuesday. Rebecca was washing her face, the kind of deep scrub that comes after a long day of teaching ninth graders about the American Revolution. Her phone buzzed on the counter. Then again. And again. By the time she dried her hands, 17 notifications lit up the screen. Her sister Jennifer had tagged her in something. Rebecca opened Instagram with pruned fingers still damp from the sink. The first thing she saw was a poll. Her daughter Natalie's poll. Posted 4 hours ago. What's worse, her witch's double chin or her annoying voice? There was a photo. Rebecca in the kitchen that morning, mid-sentence, caught at the worst possible angle. Her face was tilted down toward her phone, creating an unflattering shadow beneath her jaw. The lighting was harsh. The expression was severe. 342 people had voted. 68% chose the voice. Rebecca's hands went numb. The phone nearly slipped into the sink. She read it again, certain she had misunderstood. But the words remained unchanged. Her daughter, her 17-year-old daughter Natalie, had posted this. To her 2,000 followers. To her classmates and friends and strangers, and apparently to family members who were now messaging Rebecca with concern and outrage. The bathroom suddenly felt too small. Rebecca sat on the edge of the tub, still holding the phone like it might explode. Comments scrolled beneath the poll. Laughing emojis. Skull emojis meaning, I'm dead. One comment read, your mom seems annoying lol. Another said, the chin for sure, you can just mute the voice. Someone had written, this is savage even for you Nat. Natalie had replied with a shrugging emoji. Rebecca's breathing came shallow and fast. This was her daughter. The girl she had raised alone since her husband David died 6 years ago. The child she had worked 2 jobs to support. The teenager whose college fund she had built dollar by dollar, sacrificing vacations and new clothes and nights out with friends. This was how Natalie saw her. A witch with a double chin and an annoying voice. Rebecca stood and walked to Natalie's bedroom door. Light glowed underneath. Music played softly inside, some pop song Rebecca didn't recognize. She knocked twice. Yeah. Natalie's voice came muffled. Rebecca opened the door. Her daughter sat on her bed, cross-legged in pajama shorts and an oversized hoodie, phone in hand. When Natalie looked up, her expression didn't change. No guilt. No surprise. Just mild annoyance at the interruption. Did you post a poll about me? Rebecca kept her voice steady, though her hands trembled. Natalie's eyes flicked back to her phone. It's just a joke, Mom. A joke. Rebecca stepped inside. You put up a picture of me and asked people to vote on what's worse about me. That's a joke to you. It's not that deep. Natalie didn't look up. Her thumbs moved across the screen, typing something. Everyone posts stuff about their parents. Not like this. Not this cruel. Now Natalie did look up, and her face held the expression Rebecca had come to dread over the past year. That particular blend of contempt and boredom that teenagers perfect like a weapon. You're being dramatic. 300 people voted. Natalie. 300 people you invited to mock me. They're just voting. It's not personal. Rebecca felt something crack inside her chest. How is it not personal? You called me a witch. You pointed out my double chin. You said my voice is annoying. Tell me how any of that isn't personal. Natalie sighed, the kind of exaggerated exhale designed to communicate maximum exasperation. You're always complaining about everything. You're always nagging. I say one thing and you lecture me for an hour. People agreed that it's annoying. That's all. So you humiliate me publicly instead of talking to me? I'm not humiliating you. God, you make everything about you. The irony of that statement hung in the air between them. Rebecca wanted to scream. She wanted to shake her daughter and demand to know when this happened, when Natalie had transformed from a sweet girl who used to leave love notes under Rebecca's pillow into this cold stranger who saw her mother as nothing more than content for social media mockery. But she didn't scream. She never screamed. She had promised herself after David died that she would be patient, that she would be understanding, that she would give Natalie space to grieve and grow. "Take it down," Rebecca said quietly. "No. Natalie, take it down now. It's my account. I can post what I want. It's my face. My privacy. You don't have the right to put me online like that without permission." Natalie's jaw set in that stubborn way she had inherited from her father. "You're on my account all the time. You comment on my stuff. You like my photos. This is the same thing." "This is not the same thing, and you know it." "Whatever, Mom. I'm not taking it down. If you're embarrassed, that's your problem." Rebecca stood in the doorway, looking at this girl she barely recognized. Natalie's face was buried in her phone again, dismissing her completely. The casual cruelty of it was breathtaking. Not because Natalie didn't understand what she had done, but because she understood perfectly and simply didn't care. "Okay," Rebecca said finally. Natalie glanced up, suspicious of the sudden calm in her mother's voice. "If that's how you see me," Rebecca continued, "then I guess I need to accept it. I'll stop being so annoying. I'll stop nagging you about homework and curfew and whether you've eaten anything besides chips today. I'll stop asking about your life and your friends and your plans. You want to be left alone? Fine. You're alone." "Good," Natalie shot back. "Finally." Rebecca closed the door and walked to her own bedroom. She sat on the edge of her bed, in the dark, listening to her heart pound. The phone in her hand kept buzzing. Messages from her sister, from friends who had seen the post, from parents of Natalie's classmates expressing shock and sympathy. She turned the phone face down and sat in silence. Morning came gray and cold. Rebecca woke at 6, made coffee, and got ready for work without knocking on Natalie's door. Usually she woke her daughter at 6:30, gave her the 15-minute warning, then the 5-minute warning, then stood outside the bathroom reminding her they needed to leave by 7:15. Today she did none of that. At 7:20, Rebecca grabbed her bag and walked to the car. She was pulling out of the driveway when Natalie burst through the front door, half-dressed, backpack hanging off one shoulder. "Mom! Wait!" Rebecca kept driving. In the rearview mirror, she watched Natalie stand in the driveway, phone pressed to her ear, probably calling a friend for a ride. Rebecca felt a small, mean satisfaction at that. Then she felt nothing at all. At school, her colleague Martin stopped by her classroom during lunch. "Hey, I saw that post about you. Are you okay?" Rebecca had forgotten that Martin followed Natalie on social media. He had a daughter the same age. "I'm fine," she said. "That was really harsh. Have you talked to her?" "There's nothing to talk about." Rebecca shuffled papers on her desk, not meeting his eyes. "She's 17. Hating your parents is basically a requirement at that age. Still, the public humiliation aspect is brutal. That's not normal teenage rebellion." Rebecca appreciated his concern, but she didn't want to discuss it. Didn't want to put words to the deep ache that had settled in her stomach since last night. "It's handled," she said, which was neither true nor false but succeeded in ending the conversation. The week passed in cold silence. Rebecca stopped doing 100 small things she hadn't realized she did until she stopped doing them. She didn't sort Natalie's laundry from her own. She didn't buy the specific brand of granola bars Natalie liked. She didn't leave notes about when she'd be home or what was for dinner. She didn't ask about the chemistry test or the college essay or whether things were okay with Natalie's friend Emma, who she'd been fighting with lately. She went to work. She came home. She made dinner for one. She ate it. She went to bed. Natalie, for her part, seemed liberated. She stayed out later, came home whenever she pleased, ate cereal for dinner 3 nights in a row, blasted music in her room at midnight on a school night. Rebecca didn't say a word. On Thursday evening, Rebecca's sister Jennifer called. "I'm worried about you." "Don't be." "Rebecca, she's a kid. Kids are cruel. She probably didn't think about how much it would hurt you. She knew exactly what she was doing." "Okay, maybe she did. But you're the adult. You can't just shut down on her." "I'm not shutting down. I'm respecting her wishes. She said I was annoying, that I nagged too much, that she wanted me to leave her alone. So I'm leaving her alone." Jennifer was quiet for a moment. "For how long?" "I don't know." "Rebecca, she needs you. She made it pretty clear she doesn't. She's 17. She doesn't know what she needs." Rebecca closed her eyes. "I've spent 6 years putting her first. Every single decision I've made has been about what's best for Natalie. And she thanked me by turning me into a joke for her friends. I'm done, Jen. I'm just done." "You don't mean that." But Rebecca wasn't sure if she did or didn't mean it. The exhaustion went bone deep. She was tired of trying so hard and getting nothing back. Tired of being the villain in her daughter's story no matter what she did. Tired of loving someone who seemed to take joy in her pain. By Sunday, something in the house had shifted. Rebecca noticed Natalie hovering near the kitchen while she cooked. Not speaking, but present. Once or twice, Rebecca caught her daughter staring with an expression she couldn't quite read. On Monday morning, Rebecca woke to find her car keys missing. She searched the usual spots, then her purse, then the kitchen counters. Nothing. "Natalie," she called up the stairs. "Have you seen my keys?" No answer. Rebecca checked the time. 7:20. She was going to be late. She climbed the stairs and knocked on Natalie's door. When she opened it, her daughter was sitting on the bed, fully dressed for once, holding the keys. "Why do you have those?" Rebecca asked. Natalie's face was strange. Tight. "I wanted to talk to you." "So you stole my keys?" "You won't talk to me otherwise." Rebecca held out her hand. "I need to get to work." "Mom, Natalie's voice cracked. "I took the pole down." Rebecca lowered her hand. "When?" "Friday. I should have done it that night. I know that. I was mad and I didn't think." "You didn't think about how I would feel?" "No. I did. I knew it would hurt you." Natalie's eyes filled with tears. "That's why I posted it. I wanted to hurt you." The honesty of it was shocking. Rebecca took a step back. "Why?" "Because you're here." Natalie's voice rose, shaking. "You're always here. You're alive and Dad's not, and sometimes I hate you for it. I know that's horrible. I know it doesn't make sense. But I see you every day and I don't see him, and it's not fair, and I wanted you to hurt like I hurt." Rebecca's vision blurred. She hadn't cried since David's funeral, but now tears spilled hot down her cheeks. "I miss him too, baby. Every single day." "I know." Natalie was crying now too, holding the keys like a lifeline. "I know you do. I'm so sorry, Mom. I'm sorry for what I said. I'm sorry for the pole. I'm sorry for being such a bitch to you when all you've ever done is take care of me." Rebecca crossed the room and pulled her daughter into her arms. Natalie collapsed against her, sobbing into her shoulder the way she used to when she was small. Rebecca held her tight, stroking her hair, feeling the years of grief and anger and love and loss pour out of both of them. "I don't think you're a witch," Natalie whispered. "And your voice isn't annoying. You have the best voice. When I was little, your voice was the only thing that could make me feel safe." Rebecca kissed the top of her daughter's head. We're going to be okay. Both of us. I promise. They stood like that for a long time, two people who loved each other learning how to say it out loud again. Learning that hurt didn't erase love. That anger didn't cancel out grief. That sometimes the worst moments led to the most honest conversations. Eventually, Natalie pulled back and wiped her face. I wrote you something. An apology post. I wanted to show you before I put it up. She handed Rebecca her phone. On the screen was a photo of the two of them from Natalie's childhood, heads together, smiling at the camera. Beneath it was a long caption about loss and pain and misdirected anger. About having the best mom in the world and being too broken to see it sometimes. About learning that social media cruelty is still cruelty, even when you tell yourself it's just a joke. It ended with, I'm sorry, Mom, for everything. Thank you for loving me even when I make it impossible. Especially then. Rebecca handed the phone back. You don't have to post that. I want to. People need to know I was wrong. Okay. But I need you to know something too. Rebecca cupped Natalie's face in her hands. You're allowed to be angry. You're allowed to grieve your father. You're allowed to have bad days and say the wrong things. I'm your mom. I can take it. What I can't take is silence. Talk to me. Yell at me if you need to. Just don't shut me out. I won't. I promise. Rebecca kissed her forehead. Now give me my keys so I'm not fired. Natalie laughed through her tears and handed them over. Can I ride with you? Really? What about your reputation? Being seen with your annoying mom. I love my annoying mom. They walked downstairs together, grabbed their bags, and headed to the car. As Rebecca drove, Natalie talked about her classes, her friends, the college applications stressing her out. Rebecca listened and responded and felt something she hadn't felt in years. Hope. The poll was gone from Instagram. Natalie's apology stayed up for 3 days before she took it down, self-conscious about the attention. But Rebecca had screenshot it, saved it in a folder on her phone labeled, Good Days. There would be hard times ahead. Grief didn't heal in a single conversation. Relationships didn't rebuild overnight. But they had started. They had taken the first step. And for now, that was enough. 3 months later, Rebecca got a letter in the mail. College acceptance for Natalie. Full scholarship. They screamed and cried and danced around the kitchen together. That night, Natalie posted a photo of them celebrating, arms around each other, faces bright with joy. The caption read, Thanks for never giving up on me, Mom. Thanks for showing me that love is stronger than anger. And thanks for your voice. It's not annoying. It's the sound of home. Rebecca read it 17 times. She never did lose the double chin. At 43, she decided it was part of her face, part of her story, part of surviving and living and refusing to disappear just because the world thought women should shrink themselves into nothing. And her voice. She kept using it, teaching her classes, talking to her daughter, speaking up when things mattered. Because she learned something important that terrible Tuesday night and in all the days that followed, you can't control how people see you. You can't make them value what you offer. You can't force them to recognize your worth. But you can choose to see it in yourself. Rebecca chose herself. And in doing so, she helped her daughter learn to choose herself too. In the end, that was the real story. Not the poll or the pain or the public humiliation, but the moment two broken people decided to heal together instead of hurt alone. That was the story worth telling. The Poll That Changed Everything is a deeply moving contemporary story that examines the complex intersection of grief, family dynamics, social media cruelty, and the arduous journey toward healing. Written with raw emotional honesty, this narrative explores how unprocessed trauma can manifest as misdirected anger and how digital platforms amplify personal cruelty into public spectacle. At its heart, this is a story about two people, a mother and daughter, who must navigate the wreckage of loss while learning to communicate across a chasm of pain neither fully understands. The story unfolds over several weeks but encompasses 6 years of accumulated grief, resentment, and love twisted into unrecognizable shapes by tragedy. It's a meditation on single parenthood, teenage rebellion elevated to digital warfare, and the moment when silence becomes more destructive than the hardest truths. Rebecca embodies the archetypal single parent stretched to breaking point. At 43, she spent 6 years since her husband David's death being everything to everyone: mother, father, provider, comforter, while receiving virtually nothing in return. She teaches ninth graders about the American Revolution by day, a detail that carries symbolic weight. She teaches about rebellion and transformation while experiencing her own domestic revolution. Her character is defined by sacrifice. She works 2 jobs. She builds a college fund, dollar by dollar. She surrenders vacations and new clothes and nights out with friends. She has made herself small, compact, efficient, a machine of maternal devotion that requires no maintenance, no appreciation, no reciprocal care. The pole strikes at Rebecca's deepest vulnerabilities. The witch's double chin targets her physical appearance, something society already scrutinizes in middle-aged women. The annoying voice attacks her very means of connection, the voice she uses to teach, to parent, to exist in the world. But the real wound isn't the insults themselves, it's that they come from Natalie, the person for whom Rebecca has sacrificed everything. Rebecca's response reveals her character's evolution. Initially, she maintains control. Her voice stays steady, though her hands trembled. She tries reasoning, setting boundaries, demanding respect. When these fail, she doesn't explode into rage. Instead, she withdraws completely, implementing what could be called malicious compliance. Natalie wants to be left alone? Fine. Rebecca will give her exactly that. This withdrawal is both self-protective and instructive. Rebecca stops performing the invisible labor of motherhood, the morning wake-up calls, the specific granola bars, the laundry sorting, the check-ins about homework and friendships. By ceasing these actions, she makes visible all the care that had been rendered invisible by its consistency. At 17, Natalie represents grief that has been inadequately processed and has curdled into cruelty. She lost her father at 11, an age when children are just beginning to understand mortality but lack the emotional tools to process it. 6 years later, that unaddressed trauma manifests as contempt for the parent who remained. Natalie's cruelty is both calculated and desperate. She doesn't post the poll impulsively in a moment of anger. She takes an unflattering photo, crafts deliberately hurtful language, and publishes it to 2,000 followers. When confronted, she didn't look up, and responds with mild annoyance at the interruption, the casual dismissiveness of someone who has armored herself in indifference. Her initial justifications reveal a teenager's self-centered worldview. It's just a joke. Everyone posts stuff about their parents. You're being dramatic. These are deflections, ways of avoiding accountability by minimizing impact. When pressed, she pivots to victim blaming. You're always complaining about everything. You're always nagging. But beneath this cruelty lies devastating honesty that she finally articulates in the climactic scene. You're alive and Dad's not, and sometimes I hate you for it. This is the story's emotional core, survivor's guilt projected onto the survivor. Natalie doesn't actually hate her mother's voice or appearance. She hates the fundamental unfairness of her father's death, and her mother is the only available target for that rage. The detail about Natalie following her mother on social media, "You're on my account all the time. You comment on my stuff," reveals a desire for connection even as she destroys it. She wants her mother present in her digital life even as she publicly humiliates her there. Though dead before the story begins, David's absence shapes everything. He's mentioned only briefly. Rebecca raised Natalie alone since her husband David died 6 years ago, but his death is the earthquake that created every fault line in this family. In the alternative climax scene at the cemetery, David's grave becomes a confessional booth, a witness to grief that cannot speak back. Natalie records videos talking to stone, seeking guidance from someone who can never answer. This futile communication highlights how both women have been talking past each other, seeking from the living what they lost with the dead. The story's most psychologically astute element is its exploration of how grief attaches to available targets. Natalie can't be angry at her father for dying. That anger has nowhere productive to go. She can't rage at the universe for its unfairness. So she unconsciously redirects that fury toward her mother, the person still present, still demanding things of her, still existing when David doesn't. This is what psychologists call displacement, redirecting emotions from their actual source to a safer target. Rebecca is safe because Natalie knows, on some level, that her mother will keep loving her regardless. The cruelty is a perverse test. Can I hurt you enough that you'll leave too? Or will you prove that love can survive even this? Rebecca initially fails this test by withdrawing, mirroring abandonment. But ultimately, she passes by returning, by holding space for Natalie's rage while maintaining boundaries. The poll represents how digital platforms transform personal cruelty into public entertainment. 342 people don't just witness Natalie's hostility, they participate in it. They vote, comment, add laughing emojis. The cruelty becomes collaborative, distributed across a network that renders it both more damaging and less personal. The specific mechanics matter. Natalie doesn't just insult her mother privately. She creates a poll, an interactive mechanism that invites others to judge and quantify Rebecca's flaws. The 68% who chose annoying voice aren't simply numbers. They're individuals who actively selected that option, each click another small betrayal. The story also examines how social media blurs private and public. Martin, Rebecca's colleague, follows Natalie and sees the post. Jennifer, Rebecca's sister, gets tagged. The humiliation isn't contained within Natalie's peer group, it ripples outward to Rebecca's professional life, her family relationships, her entire social sphere. Yet the story doesn't demonize social media entirely. Natalie's apology post becomes a site of redemption. She uses the same platform that enabled cruelty to model accountability. The medium is neutral. The users determine whether it amplifies harm or healing. Rebecca's week of withdrawal makes visible the countless small acts that constitute motherhood. She stops. Morning wake-up calls, executive functioning support, sorting laundry, domestic labor, buying specific granola bars, attentiveness to preferences, leaving notes about dinner plans, communication and care, asking about tests and essays, academic support, checking on friendships, emotional monitoring. Each action alone seems trivial. Accumulated over years, they represent a scaffolding that holds a teenager's life together. When Rebecca removes the scaffolding, Natalie initially feels liberated, staying out late, eating cereal for dinner, blasting midnight music. But this freedom is really neglect in disguise, and its hollowness soon becomes apparent. The story validates Rebecca's exhaustion while also questioning the sustainability of self-erasure. The line, "I've spent 6 years putting her first. Every single decision I've made has been about what's best for Natalie," describes devotion but also dysfunction. Rebecca has so completely sublimated her needs that she's become a service rather than a person. Both women suffer in silence for different reasons. Rebecca doesn't want to burden Natalie with her grief. "I miss him too, baby. Every single day," believing she must be strong for her daughter. Natalie doesn't articulate her rage at her father's death, instead expressing it through proxy attacks on her mother. The key-stealing scene forces a confrontation neither wanted but both needed. Natalie's desperate tactic, holding the keys hostage, breaks the silence that was calcifying into permanent estrangement. Sometimes love requires manipulation, requires forcing conversations that would otherwise never happen. The honesty that emerges is brutal. "I wanted to hurt you. I hate you for being alive when he's not." These aren't comfortable truths. But they're real truths, and speaking them begins the healing process. The story suggests that messy honesty beats comfortable silence every time. Importantly, The story doesn't resolve through erasure of harm. Natalie can't unsay the cruel words. The 342 people who voted can't unvote. The humiliation Rebecca experienced doesn't disappear when Natalie apologizes. Instead, reconciliation comes through acknowledgement and commitment to change. Natalie takes down the poll, writes a public apology, and makes herself vulnerable in return. Rebecca sets a new boundary. Talk to me. Yell at me if you need to. Just don't shut me out. The 3-month time jump acknowledges that healing isn't instantaneous. Grief didn't heal in a single conversation. Relationships didn't rebuild overnight. But they started, and that beginning matters. Rebecca's double chin becomes a focal point for society's treatment of middle-aged women's bodies. The story's ending confronts this directly. She never did lose the double chin. At 43, she decided it was part of her face, part of her story, part of surviving and living and refusing to disappear just because the world thought women should shrink themselves into nothing. This is radical acceptance in a culture that demands women remain perpetually youthful, thin, and unobtrusive. Rebecca's body holds her grief, her exhaustion, her survival, and she decides that's beautiful rather than shameful. The double chin isn't a flaw to fix, but evidence of a life fully lived. The story begins with immediate tension. The notification came at 11:47 p.m. on a Tuesday. The specificity of time creates urgency. We're in medias res. Something has happened, and we're about to discover what. The mundane detail of Rebecca washing her face, the kind of deep scrub that comes after a long day, grounds us in ordinary life before the extraordinary intrusion. This contrast amplifies the shock when 17 notifications light up her phone. The story strategically delays revealing what Natalie posted. First we see Rebecca's sister tagged her in something. Then we know it's a poll. Then we read the cruel text. Then we learn about the photo. Then the vote count and results. Each revelation compounds the horror, mimicking Rebecca's own dawning comprehension. The week of silence is compressed into a single paragraph listing what Rebecca stops doing, effectively conveying the passage of time without tedious day-by-day narration. This acceleration builds toward the confrontation that readers know must come. The characters speak in distinct voices that reveal personality. Natalie's initial responses are dismissive and minimal. "It's just a joke, Mom. It's not that deep. Whatever, Mom." These short sentences convey teenage disengagement and defensive minimization. Rebecca's responses combine hurt and control. 300 people voted, Natalie. 300 people you invited to mock me. She quantifies the betrayal, making it concrete and undeniable. The climactic scene shifts both voices. Natalie becomes vulnerable, sentences fragmenting. "Because you're here. You're always here. You're alive and Dad's not, and sometimes I hate you for it." Rebecca softens. "I miss him too, baby. Every single day." The keys become a physical representation of control and access. By taking them, Natalie forces her mother to stop, to listen, to engage. The keys grant Rebecca access to the world beyond their home. Withholding them traps her in confrontation. The cemetery scene in the alternative climax functions as liminal space between life and death, past and present, anger and acceptance. It's the only place both women can fully acknowledge what they've lost. The poll itself symbolizes judgment, quantification, and public participation in private pain. It reduces complex human qualities to binary choices, reflecting how social media flattens nuance into consumable content. This story speaks to contemporary anxieties about digital native parenting. Rebecca belongs to a generation that didn't grow up with social media, trying to parent someone for whom it's native habitat. She doesn't fully understand the rules of this space until she's already been humiliated within it. Public/private collapse. The story illustrates how social media erases boundaries between public and private life. A kitchen photo becomes entertainment for hundreds. Family dysfunction becomes content. Single-parent exhaustion. Rebecca represents millions of single parents, disproportionately mothers, navigating economic precarity, emotional labor, and societal judgment alone. The story validates their exhaustion while showing the impossible standards they're held to. Grief literacy. Both characters lack vocabulary for their grief. They haven't been taught how to talk about loss, how to sit with pain without trying to fix or flee it. Their eventual honesty models grief literacy, naming feelings, accepting their existence, moving through rather than around. The story's ending refuses simple redemption. Yes, Natalie gets into college. Yes, they celebrate together. Yes, she posts a loving tribute. But the story doesn't claim this erases what came before. Instead, the final paragraphs offer wisdom earned through suffering. You can't control how people see you. You can't make them value what you offer. You can't force them to recognize your worth. But you can choose to see it in yourself. This is self-respect born not from external validation but internal recognition. Rebecca learns she cannot make Natalie appreciate her sacrifices, cannot force gratitude or recognition. What she can control is her own self-valuation. The very final lines reframe the entire narrative, not the poll or the pain or the public humiliation, but the moment two broken people decided to heal together instead of hurt alone. That was the story worth telling. This meta-commentary reminds us that stories are about what we choose to emphasize. The poll could be the story: viral cruelty, digital age horror, teenage monsters. But the author insists on a different focus: collective healing, chosen connection, love that survives its own worst moments. The poll that changed everything succeeds because it refuses easy answers. It doesn't villainize Natalie or canonize Rebecca. It shows two flawed people making understandable mistakes while trapped in circumstances beyond their control. Death created their situation. Their responses, both destructive and redemptive, are deeply human. The story reminds us that cruelty often masks pain, that withdrawal sometimes precedes engagement, and that the people who hurt us most are often those who need us most. It validates the exhaustion of caretakers while insisting they deserve care too. It acknowledges that social media amplifies our worst impulses while suggesting we can choose to use those same platforms better. Most importantly, it offers hope without naivety. Healing is possible, the story says, but not inevitable. It requires honesty, vulnerability, and the willingness to show up for each other even when, especially when, it would be easier to walk away. This is a story about resurrection after betrayal, about finding your voice after being told it's annoying, about choosing yourself without abandoning others. In an age of performative cruelty and viral humiliation, it's a story we desperately need.